Well, greetings, Comp 1, Section 71 at Riverland College, 3 hours south of me in Austin, Minnesota. I want to thank you for watching that first video that I asked you to watch, because I figured, that can help be part of how I introduce myself to you today on this first day of class. And if you are taking other online classes, synchronously or asynchronously, maybe that might be helpful. I got to correct a couple things that I said on that video. One of them pretty importantly for you. And let's get going here. So I don't need these on either because I'm not doing any reading, I don't think, much. When you take a class, any class, you need a few things put before you go on the first day. You need to know, what kind of person am I dealing with? What's the teacher like? And you also need to know, what do I need to succeed? What are the requirements? How do I get the credits? What's one of the weird things about college life, taking college classes, is that when you go to a roster, you see the name of the course, Comp 1, which is required, and you also see the name of the instructor. In my case, it's Johnson. Well, neither the name of the course nor the name tells you anything about what's coming your way. Comp 1 says nothing, right? That doesn't sign or signify anything. And Johnson happens to be the third most common name in the United States of America. So let's try to cast some light on some of this. With this little video lesson, I want to do a couple of simple things. I want to just introduce myself, tell you my story. There are teachers that are private, and there are teachers that talk all the time and self-disclose. TMI, I think, is what we call it. Well, you better get ready for plenty of that, because I am a too much information teacher every minute of my life. I also want to give you a natural history, my natural history, which is pretty sketchy with online learning. And I want to tell you ahead of time, sorry, there's lots of annoying birds on my farm. Well, let me just start at the beginning. Again, my name is Jeff Johnson. You can just simply call me Johnson when we talk, when we email, when we communicate with one another. There's, excuse me, no need for Mr. No need for Professor, although I kind of do love the sound of that. In terms of biography, I grew up in Anoka, Minnesota, in the Anoka-Champlin area, which is a northern suburb. Middle-class upbringing. I went to Catholic private school when I was a little boy. I went to Anoka Senior High for high school, and I attended St. John's University, where I was actually a pretty crappy student. From St. John's University, which I started attending in 1978, a long time ago. Sorry, I'm 60 again. I took degrees in English. I took an undergraduate degree in history, and I also accidentally majored in the humanities because I took so many philosophy classes. Technically, I don't have that degree because I thought it would be redundant. I didn't bother to do the paperwork on it, but I also took a degree, a minor in secondary education, because I had the idea that I would be a high school English teacher, which I was for a while. I stole my best friend's girlfriend, or at least I stole her affections senior year. Her name is Jessie, and we have this September, on September 6th, here in a couple weeks, we will be married 34 years. We have two boys. They're already 26 and 25, and they are both teachers. So when I left St. John's University as a young man, I fell in love with it so much. It's just to the west of me here, 3 or 4 miles. I'm in Stearns County in the middle of the state. I wanted to get back to St. John's in the worst way. I still love it there. And my head was just in this wheel spinning exercise to get back there. I'm looking at the time because I don't want this to be too long. It's hard for me to shut up. And I made it back there, and I spent my 30s and 40s teaching English there, where I was happy, or more or less what passes for happiness. And then I had a really dramatic little swerve that I thought was horrible at first, but it ended up being fantastic. What happened was that in 2007 or so, a new principal came to my old high school, and we were like a nightmare together. It was horrible. And in the spring of 2009, I found myself suddenly enacting a revolution against her and a priest, and neither of them need to be named. I led a revolution because she had this secret plan that she made public, and she pulled it off too, to change the high school's curriculum. She wanted to transform it from what it was, which was an AP program, all kinds of AP classes, to something called the International Baccalaureate program. And right now I'll spare you how I feel about the United Nations, but well, it was really, 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 really terrible. And I got brutally grudge fired from a teaching job in front of God and everybody. And it was horrible because it was a fight that involved a lot of people, students, faculty, and staff. An entire generation of alums came forward to defend me, and the priest couldn't forgive me for how apparently I was going to go. You're supposed to go quietly from a teaching job when you get fired so you can get letters and get another job. And I destroyed the school. It's been shrinking ever since. They had to fill it up with Koreans and Chinese students to make it go. Have you ever accidentally created an Asian American high school? I have. So the story was I was 49 years old. Again, this is the spring of 2009. And I'd been fired from a teaching job, and I was in a really bad spot. I had a lapsed Minnesota State teaching license. I had an unfinished master's degree from the 80s, and I was in big, big trouble. My wife forgave me. She was working as a nurse, so we didn't have to leave our beautiful 20-acre property on this little private lake. I don't know if you can see it. And some professors sat me down. It's kind of my whole life story in just a few minutes. And they're like, dude, you just got fired. You just wrecked a high school. You're not going to be a high school teacher again. Let's do this. Take a little sabbatical year, finish your master's degree, go back to school, and then you can start talking again. And they rigged it with the provost, so I would only have to spend 1 year there as a 49-year-old graduate student, taking classes with students, English majors who were in their 20s, right? All wearing hemp necklaces and all tattooed. And I was like their troubled uncle, finishing the sentences of professors that I had had back in the 80s. They even invited me to their parties. I never went. I always came home to my wife and boys. And I finally got the master's degree done. And the following year, I was so scared, I took 3 teaching jobs, 3 of them. I took a half of a gig at St. Cloud State University, half a contract. I took a 1/3 contract at the College of St. Benedict, as I always joke, fired by the monks, hired by the nuns. But the most important phone call of my life happened when a man named Kelly McCullough, who was at the time the dean of Central Lakes College up in Brainerd, he called me on the phone. Somehow he heard what had happened to me, and he's like, we want to talk to you. Provost was on the line too, the VP. I said, I live in Stearns County. I don't want to move to Brainerd. It's too far away. He said, it's not too far away. We found your house on Google Maps. We'll rig it so you don't have to come every day. Pretty quickly, I was signing up for the greatest teaching job of my life. I absolutely love to teach in the Minnesota State system. I'm beginning my 11th year, and you're part of it. And I just could not tell you how happy I have been teaching at a state college. I'm a full-time member, what's called a UFT, an unlimited full-time member. That means tenure at Central Lakes College. I teach composition there. I teach Intro to the Humanities, Classical Mythology. I'm a member of the honors faculty. My honors students made me this t-shirt. It's got a couple blotches on it, but I'm proud of it. They gave me that this spring. We were like a little family, that class. And I also dreamed into being a poetry reading series there that has brought 25 of the greatest poets in this country to Central Lakes College. Like I bragged in my other video, I've gotten well over 250,000, over 300,000 actually, to host 25 of the greatest poets in this country. That's a passion of mine, hosting poetry readings. And until the pandemic came along, I was getting over 1,000 people a year to poetry readings, including 6 U.S. poet laureates. Nothing makes me happier than organizing, promoting, and hosting a literary event. And I get tens of thousands of dollars in my budgets and unspent grants because of last year, but it all carried forward. And I hope to be hosting poets again soon. So that's kind of my story, at least, story of my life. I love teaching so much, I skip sabbatical. I don't know if you know this, but college professors can take an entire half semester off for full pay or an entire year off at 80% pay every 6 years. I'm the only teacher in the history of the universe that skips sabbatical. I don't need a rest. I'm not tired. I'm going to keep talking. What would I miss if I took sabbatical? So I always delete those emails. Now I'm 10 minutes into this video. I'd like to go another 10, 15 minutes if I could. Let's see if I can experiment with shutting up. And I want to give you my history of online teaching, which again is pretty sketchy. I'm a classroom teacher, not an online teacher, but I gotta try. And I want to tell you something. Oh, there's another thing I want to correct too. I bragged that I was getting a DSLR camera and a GoPro Hero 8 on that other video. I'm not going to get the DSLR. My dean called me this week and she's like, Jeff, we administrators love your imagination and your grandiosity. Can you try to get by with the GoPro? Your order was way beyond what anyone else ordered in terms of faculty requests for CARES Act. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. So I'm getting all the rest of that gear, but not a DSLR. I'm getting the GoPro Hero so I can teach underwater. I'll be doing that next week. So here's the thing. When I got hired at Central Lakes College, I was meeting with Kelly McCullough in the interview. He'd already decided to hire me before I'd even gotten there. That happens sometimes. And while we were interviewing, here's my history with online learning. He said, do you have any interest in teaching fully online? You live an hour south, you're going to be a commuting teacher. You could teach from home. You would only have to come here for workshops. And you don't lie during a job interview. So I said, Kelly, I don't think my heart would be in that. I'm a classroom teacher. I want to live in vivid companionship with my students. I don't, no thanks. And then he said, well, how about a class with reduced seat time? How about a hybrid class, a 75-25, where you teach 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then just post work and things for them to think about online for 25% of the class. I said, that right there smells like a gateway drug. But if you train me, I'll do it. You train me how to do it and I'll do it. And he did. And I got through that first year. Kelly McCall is the greatest administrator of my life. And I need to talk about him a little bit today. I was so scared that year. And I knew I was in good shape that fall when he came up to me in the computer lab and he said, how many classes do you want to teach in the spring? I said, I don't know, Kelly, how many do you want me to teach? And again, I'm teaching at 3 different schools. That's first semester, doing this huge loop. He said, how about 10 classes? Can you teach 10? I said, how about 4? Why don't you give me 4? Give me a full load. And he did. And that was the day I knew that college was just taking a hold of me. So the following spring, again, my first year at CLC, I go to my mailbox one day and I picked up my load report for the upcoming fall. And I could see Comp 1 on there. I could see the first time I was ever going to teach classical mythology because they were figuring out I was a literature person really fast. And I saw Comp 1 online. And I thought, oh, jeepers, I just told you I didn't want to teach online. And I went to his office brandishing the load report. I said, Kelly McCall, I told you in the interview last summer that I didn't want to teach online. What is the matter with you? He said, listen, I'm helping you catch on here. You're an adjunct right now. You're going to be a permanent member of the faculty in a few minutes. But to help you catch on, I want you to at least know a little bit about online learning. Just give it a whirl. Try it. And if you don't care for it, I won't give you another one. So that summer, summer kind of just turns into one long day. And I didn't do a lot of thinking about teaching online until, probably late July of that summer, 10 years ago. And I started thinking about it. And then something happened, which is that the entire D2L shell of someone who's now a beloved colleague of mine and my friend, Leanne Flynn, Professor Leanne Flynn's, her entire D2L shell somehow mistakenly ended up in mine. And I opened it up and I'm like, this is her entire online class. So I texted her or called her, I can't remember which, and I said, I accidentally have access to your entire D2L class. Can I look at it? Can I just take a peek at it? I got to teach an online class. She says, absolutely. Let's just leave it up there for a couple of days before we fix it, and you can check it out. And I did, and I'm going to admit something to you. I freaked. I just completely freaked out. What unfolded before me on the screen was an entire online class that she obviously had typed out, all 44 classes. It was a masterpiece of detail and organization, two things that I'm no good at. And anxious is too strong a word. Let's call myself, I was concerned at that moment. I'm like, what am I going to do? How do I do this? How does somebody teach online? And in a moment of cautious desperation, I went to we just celebrated his 26th birthday here on this porch, Eggs Benedict and board games. But back then, my older son, Jeffy, was about 16 years old. We homeschooled both our kids. And I went to him and I said, I have to teach an online class. How do I do this? He said, don't worry about it. I'll just make you a YouTube channel. And I thought, that right there, that's a pretty good idea. I wonder if I could teach an entire class in YouTube. And I did. I did. I did it for actually an entire year, just one class, fall and spring. And across that fall, the fall of his 16th year, my son, with a series of increasingly better cameras, we built a YouTube channel. Now, at first, we had an iPhone 4, my first iPhone. It was small, and those videos were kind of crappy because it was jiggly. But we did it. We got up a few videos with an iPhone 4. Partway through that year, I got a camera from the Alcuin Library at St. John's and St. Ben's because the librarians love me there so much. They to this minute, they give me borrowing privileges. So I got to take this camera and this tripod, and it was all right. The quality of the videos improved. And then probably about October of that year, we actually shot a few of these into the spring, I'm remembering. I made a deal with my son. I said, if I buy you a DSLR camera and a shotgun mic, will you help me build this channel? And if you do, you can take all the equipment when you leave home. The gear is yours. And that's exactly what we did. And then the quality of the videos got fairly serious because my son is a genius at editing and sound and lights and cameras. He's really a geek. He really nerds out on that stuff. And to this minute, he's an English teacher at Andover High School, north of the suburbs, in my old district where I went to school when I was a kid. He has a side gig as a professional videographer. He makes $50 to $100 an hour doing all kinds of projects. So I accidentally turned him into a videographer. And here's the thing. I got pretty good with teaching online with YouTube. You can learn things online with YouTube. We all know that. There's a billion how-to videos out there. I've taken 1 million online guitar lessons, learning how to play licks. And at the end of that stint, we could call it, teaching online, when it was over, I made 2 presentations at very large conferences on what that experience was like. I made a presentation at the Minnesota Council of Teachers of English, and I also made 2 presentations at the largest conference for education and technology that is held every year at Northwestern University. I can't remember the name of the conference, but I was a big deal at that deal, and I made 2 presentations. I made a morning presentation, and I made an afternoon presentation on what it was like to teach in the D2L shell with YouTube. And I've arrived at a pretty ironic moment. The second presentation was more well attended than any conference presentation I've ever made. There were like 60 people in the room, and they were all mostly MnSCU professors. We now call MnSCU MnState. And there were administrators in the room, including a couple VPs and provosts and presidents. And I made a decent presentation, and I went for the crescendo finish. And at the end of I'm at 19 minutes. Give me maybe another 10. Not even that. 9 minutes. Because you've already watched one of my videos. At the end of that presentation, I pointed to the screen and I pointed to the computer and I said, okay, right now, I'm going to commit blasphemy at a tech conference. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm through with online teaching, with video. I'm going back to the classroom, which is my home, where I've taught tens of thousands of classes. I'm not doing this anymore. I remember proclaiming that Bill Gates was a complete idiot and that his operating system sucks, and that, more importantly, that I believe then, and I kind of believe now, although I got to modify that a little bit because of the pandemic. I told them that I believe Bill Gates was wrong when he said that computers were the future of education. I told those teachers, those brothers and sisters of mine in education, that I believe in an education of the human heart, not the mind necessarily, of the human heart. And I told them that you cannot achieve an education of the human heart through a machine. That happens in classrooms that trace their way all the way back to Aristotle's Lyceum, which was dreamed into being 5 centuries before Christ walked the earth. They went berserk, right? It was a standing ovation, even though they're tech people. I was getting pats on the back and high fives, and I remember getting in my old pickup truck and flying out of there going, I'm never doing this again. Well, I am, aren't I? Now let's bring us up to the present moment. I know in that video that I said I can't live like that. I can't live in the asynchronous world. But I can. I've done it before, and I'm going to do it for you. That's how I'm going to serve you down at Riverland, Section 71. I don't know one of your names yet. I got a couple emails from some of you, but I want to teach this class with YouTube. And here's where we get a little proof that there's no coincidence. Kelly McCullough is the man who hired me at Central Lakes College way back in 2010. Kelly McCullough, the greatest administrator I've ever worked for, and I have been friends for a decade. And he had his own little career swerve after he hired me, shortly after that. And again, we're friends. When I hosted the famous poet Billy Collins for the 3rd time on this porch, the most famous poet on earth, I made sure that Kelly McCullough was at that dinner in 2018, and I sat him right next to Billy Collins. He was so thrilled. You might know who Billy is. And Kelly has come to a couple of my poetry readings. Now, this last fall, I only got to host the Iranian-American poet Kaveh Akbar, this 30-year-old rising star in American poetry, and that was mid-October. And Kelly happened to be up in the Brainerd Lakes region for a meeting for Men's State Administrators at, I think, Cragun's Resort. He skipped out because he wanted to come to the poetry reading. And at the poetry reading, he and I started making plans. Man, we were going to get all this money, and we were going to host and share the current U.S. Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo. And we also talked a little bit about me taking on some overload credits for Riverland and me going back to work for him. And early this spring, we had that conversation. He said, yeah, I'll have a Comp 1 for you in the fall, and I'll have a Comp 1 for you in the spring. And then this summer, after my little surgery that I told you about, don't worry, cancer's all gone, I'm fine. He asked me, actually called me when I was eating Eggs Benedict with my younger son out of foam containers at Kay's restaurant in St. Joe. I had just had my skin graft inspected by my plastic surgeon. I'm sitting in this parking lot in the foam flutters, and it's Kelly, and he's like, hey, I had somebody bail on me. Would you like to teach a 6-week summer course at Riverland? I said, absolutely. Trying to get my wife a new kitchen countertop with overload credits. And that gave me a second opportunity to teach with Zoom. So I've told you about myself, and I've given you a little bit of my history with online learning. And let's bring this video to a conclusion. I'm working for Kelly McCullough again. I love that guy. He was my old dean, and now he's my new dean. And I'm not only serving my college full-time up north, I got an extra gig, and that extra gig is you, Section 71. I had the hope that I could teach this class live, synchronously, with Zoom, like I'm going to be doing tomorrow already. But it was made clear to me that they had the hope that this course would be done asynchronously, and that means with YouTube. I'm going to teach this course I'm going to reshoot my entire channel. I'm going to reshoot the whole thing. The first couple videos are going to be kind of like this one, kind of not so great because I'm using my iPhone 11. It's still 4K and I look halfway decent. I think you can see all my blotches and wrinkles. Pretty soon, all that gear that I talked about in that first video is going to be here, and I'm going to be using it. I'm going to be shooting lessons on my porch, in my study, in my glass porch, on my boat, in the woods, wherever I feel like it. And 3 days a week, I'm going to put up individual, hopefully well-shot, well-edited videos that provide the course content for this class via YouTube. Now, if that's not your scene, there's probably other classes at Riverland that are asynchronous that you can take a seat in. Here's what I think, though. If you just, I'd rather talk than type. I'd rather make this as human as possible. So, you know, if it's an asynchronous class and it's just written, it's just you and a computer. It's just you sitting at a computer. At least here, you've got a human being talking to you, trying to make some connection to your life and make sure that you feel like you're loved and cared for and taught and looked after from an experienced teacher. I'll put up YouTube videos that will go 3 days a week. We'll go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They'll probably run between 30, 35 minutes or so. After that, it can get kind of long. So they won't very often be full 50-minute videos, although I reserve the right to do that whenever I got something to say that might take longer than half an hour. And all you have to do is log on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, watch the videos, and then do the rest of the work that I'll post up in the syllabus. The center of all my courses has been an academic journal, and we've got plenty of time to talk about all of that. And I don't know if this is all right with you or not, but it's the way it's going to go. I'd rather talk than type. I'm a storyteller. You can't tell that already. That's how I live in the world. I orient myself in the most complicated ideas with narrative, with stories. And let's end with one. I found out with that first channel, there's an interesting thing. Here's I think my final idea. I want to try to do this in less than half an hour, and that'll give you about, it doesn't matter, 47 minutes of instruction for the first day. We take the other vid into consideration. Here's the thing I've noticed in the years, after teaching so many thousands and thousands of classes to so many thousands of students. When you teach a class, like a regular class, a real class, an actual class, in my beautiful classroom that I got to get back to someday, the class ends. The students start wanting to put stuff away at 10:02 and they leave. They got to go to their next class or lunch or whatever. But you can teach the greatest class of your life and the students get up and go and you're just kind of standing there feeling forlorn, like, wow, they left. The good thing is another class starts up later and more students come in. But you're always creating something that just sort of vanishes. This is what's interesting to me about YouTube videos. I left my entire channel up. When you make a YouTube video and you put it up, you're kind of frozen in time, like an amber, like a prehistoric insect. The class just kind of lives on. And I have left that channel up. You could dig it up and find them. It's called the Rhetoric Channel, Jeff Johnson. But what's so interesting is I realized there's kind of a virtue to it. Like if you create a class and film it, you put it up and leave it public, it's there for the whole world to see. I'm not bragging, but the fact is some of those videos that I put up have 5,000-6,000 views. And here an example would be how to write a classification essay. That thing has 5,500 views with comments and stuff. And that was useful to somebody who wanted to write a classification paper. And it's amazing who I've heard from in the years, people who have stumbled onto these videos. Sorry about that bird. I heard once from a writer, a professional writer in Southern Ontario, who found my email address on the Central Lakes College website and wrote me and complimented. He's like, you know what? Your explanation of the difference between periodical and cumulative sentences using William Faulkner and Ernest Hemingway sentences as examples, that's definitive. You did a great job explaining that. I wrote back, thank you. I heard once from an Argentinian literature professor. Somehow she happened onto my videos, but I kept dropping the name of Jorge Luis Borges, and she wanted to correspond with me about Borges, who's a small god to me. And we did have a friendship for a while there. I remember I've heard from tons of people. I heard from a professor, an English professor in England at Reading University. He wrote me and he said that he and his graduate students had watched every video I put up. And I just sat there feeling complimented, but also confused. Like, why would you do that? You must not have a lot to do in England. So that's part of what this is about. Maybe creating things that would not only be useful for you, but I don't know, maybe for someone else. I'll get your syllabus up either today, which is Sunday, or tomorrow. If some of you have found out already that if you have any questions or comments, I answer emails instantly. I get back to students immediately, right away, pretty fast. I think Hannah Blood wrote me. So did a dude named Clayton. I'll get back to you right away. I will also set up Zoom office hours if you ever want to talk to me live, so we can look and at each other and see each other and talk to one another. I'm going to give you my mobile number. You can call me. You can text me. Email I prefer, but you young people love to text, so text me. If you have an Android, your text is going to be pretty short because I'm like one finger guy. Sorry, I'm that dude. But if you have an iPhone, well, I can use all my fingers, or voice activated, speech activated writing. Take it easy on my hands. I'm past 31 minutes. I told you I can't shut up. I wanted to meet you, and I wanted you to know who I am. And the bad news is I'm not an online teacher with much experience. The good news is I've been teaching English classes, specifically on literature and poetry, for 35 years. So at least you got that, even though I look like hell because I'm 60. And I hope this is, at least with these two videos in combination, you've got an idea of what you signed up for. I'll put both of these videos up for you, and I'll have new gear up for you on Wednesday. And hopefully within a week, I'll have my new GoPro and 4K monitor and my Sennheiser lapel mic and all the stuff I'm getting, so I can be halfway decent at this. God bless you, Section 71 Riverland. And yeah, I'm a man of faith. You better get used to that too.